So, your application for a Hong Kong permanent ID was refused. It's a tough pill to swallow, and it can really feel like you've hit a dead end. But what if I told you there's a specific legal path designed for this exact moment? Today, we're going to demystify the appeal process. We'll use the official documents to show you exactly how it works, step by step. Okay, so that letter arrives. It's a no, it's not what you were hoping for, and honestly, it can feel like you've just slammed into a brick wall. But here's the thing, that wall isn't the end of the road. There is a formal path forward, and understanding what that path looks like is your first step. All right, so where do you go from here? Well, your first stop isn't some big, intimidating courtroom. It's actually a specialized body, created with one very specific purpose in mind, to handle cases just like yours. So let's meet the tribunal. It's called the Registration of Persons Tribunal, and it was literally established by law with a single, laser-focused mission: to hear and decide appeals about permanent identity cards. That's it. That's their whole world, which is good news for you. And look, this isn't just some internal policy. It's written right into the law. This quote from the ordinance itself is the bedrock of the tribunal's power. And that word, aggrieved, that's the magic word. If you feel that decision was wrong, this law right here gives you the right to have your case heard. Okay, so how does this whole thing actually play out? It's not just one meeting. It's a very structured process, a series of clear steps. Let's map out the entire journey, from the moment you decide to appeal, right up to the final verdict. You can really boil the whole thing down to 4 main stages. It's designed to be orderly, you know? You start by officially declaring you want to appeal, then you trade arguments on paper, then you have the actual hearing, and finally, you get that final binding decision. Let's take a closer look at each one. Everything kicks off with step 1, the notice of appeal. This is it. This is the official form you submit to say, hey, I'm challenging this decision. This is what gets the ball rolling. Right, so once that form is in, the real work starts. I like to call it the paper battle. Both you and the Commissioner of Registration will trade these formal written arguments, and they're called submissions. This is where you lay all your cards on the table, building the entire foundation for your case before anyone even steps into a hearing room. And all of that paperwork, all those submissions, they all lead up to this. Step 3, the oral hearing. This is your day in court, so to speak. It's your chance to present your case live, in person, and for the adjudicators to really dig in and ask questions. Now, one thing to know, you're not going to get an answer right away. After the hearing, the adjudicators don't just make a decision on the spot. They need time to consider everything: the evidence, the written arguments, what was said at the hearing. They reserve their decision, which basically means they're taking it all away to think it through properly. And that brings us to the end of the line. Step 4, the determination. This isn't just a simple note. It's the tribunal's official, legally binding judgment. It lays out all their findings and delivers the final, conclusive answer to your appeal. Okay, let's pause here for a second, because before we go any deeper, we have to talk about maybe the single most crucial concept in this whole process. It's called the burden of proof. And trust me, if you don't understand this, your case could be in trouble before it even begins. It really comes down to a simple question. Who has to do the convincing? Is it the government's job to prove you don't qualify, or is it your job to prove you do? And the answer could not be clearer. The burden of proof, it's on you. You are the appellant, the one making the appeal, so the responsibility to prove your case falls squarely on your shoulders. And hey, this isn't just some legal theory. It's spelled out black and white right in the regulations. It says the onus of proving the same shall lie on that person. In plain English, the law itself says you have to prove it. Period. So what's the bar here? How convincing do you have to be? Well, the standard is called on a balance of probabilities. Now, this isn't like a crime show where they say beyond a reasonable doubt. It's much simpler. It just means you have to convince the tribunal that your story is more likely true than not. Think of it like tipping the scales just past 50% in your favor. Okay, so with all this talk about legal standards and burdens of proof, a really practical question comes up. Should you hire a lawyer for this? Let's dig into that. I mean, just look at these documents. They're dense, they're complicated, they reference other cases, and they're packed with legal jargon. This whole thing isn't just about telling your story, it's about fitting that story into a pretty complex legal framework. And that's tough to do on your own. Look, you absolutely can represent yourself, but here's what you get with a lawyer. They know the rules, the procedures. They're pros at structuring a solid legal argument. They know how to find and use past cases, precedents, to help you. And they handle all the formal stuff, making sure every I is dotted and every T is crossed.
And you see this in practice all the time. In a lot of these real-world cases, the appellant has legal representation. Just look at this example. The appellant is represented by counsel who is instructed by a law firm. It's a pretty common move, and for good reason.
So, after all the submissions and hearings, it all comes down to the tribunal's final determination. What are the possible outcomes at the end of this journey?
When all is said and done, it really comes down to two possible outcomes. First, appeal allowed. That's the win. The tribunal agrees with you. The original refusal is overturned, and your eligibility is confirmed. The other outcome is appeal dismissed. This means the tribunal sided with the original decision and the refusal stands.
And here's the bottom line, the most important thing to remember. The tribunal's decision is final. That's it. As the case law says, their job is to decide on the facts of the case as it finds them. What does that mean for you? It means the evidence you bring to the table isn't just important, it's everything. The entire outcome hinges on what you can prove. So there you have it. We've walked through the entire journey, from that first form all the way to the final decision. Knowing the process, understanding the rules, that's your best weapon. So the real question isn't whether there's a path forward. We know there is. The question is, are you prepared to walk it?